One of the studies I did this past summer was up on Mount Elbert here in Colorado. It's a 14er, so I was there lurking at the trailhead, pouncing on people and interrogating them about poop. What we found is that of the poopers, only less than a third of them are using the trailhead privy, which means that 70% of people are pooping out on the trail. About 15,000 people go up there every year. Basically, it works out to over half a ton of poop being pooped out on the mountain.
Yeah.
Every year.
Welcome to Backpacker Radio, presented by The Trek. I'm your co-host, Zach Badger Davis. Sitting to my right is...
Hi, I'm Juliana Chauncey, a.k.a. Chaunce.
A few reminders before we get to today's interview. First is, you've heard it already, we're going to say it again. We have a live podcast coming in Denver on December 7th at the Skylark Lounge. Starts at 4:30. It's only $30, slightly less than that, with our best friend, Kyle Hates Hiking, Kyle O'Grady. He's going to unveil a brand new trail mystery for our live audience. It's going to be spectacular. And then that is followed immediately by our massive holiday hiker extravaganza, our meetup. It's going to be ugly sweater themed per Chaunce's recommendation. And I guess tradition at this point, this will be the fourth year in a row ugly sweater.
Yeah, why are we blaming me?
I don't know why we pretend like it's going to be anything else ever.
Yeah.
Just assume ugly sweaters for all hiker meetups moving on forward. And the last thing, I guess I haven't confirmed this 100% as of this recording, but I'm pretty confident it's going to happen, is we'll be partnering with the CDTC for this.
Yes.
So we'll be doing a raffle. They'll be selling some merch, and all of the raffle money will go directly to them. Obviously, they are an awesome organization doing awesome work for the CDT. What did I leave off there?
The raffles are always really fun because then you can win some really good prizes. So if you are someone who wants new gear and doesn't want to spend money on it, we don't sell the raffle tickets unless we're selling them here, but we don't sell them, do we?
No, they'll be sold.
Oh,
we
we
don't make any money on them, but that's how we raise money for the CDTC.
Never mind, I'm just kidding. You can buy a raffle ticket
to
raise money for the CDTC. I'm just thinking about the one we did in New York.
Yeah, that was just,
we just
you
gave them
come
out.
and you got a ticket.
Okay, that was a lie. That was just to hook you. Now that you're hooked,
Yeah.
the money does go to the CDTC, which is a really great cause, and you can go home with some really good gear, and it's everyone loves a raffle.
Yeah, and 100% of the money goes to the CDTC. We don't ever make money on raffles.
No, ever. We don't even see the money.
But we do make money when you come to the live podcast, so
Yes.
make sure to get your ticket ASAP because there's limited seating for this one. So
Yes.
If you're interested, jump on it now.
The seats are literally limited.
Yeah, and I actually just got off of a call today. We're cooking another live podcast for 2025.
Oh, sweet.
Outside of Denver.
Really?
Yeah.
Can you tell me where?
Yes, just not right now.
Okay, cool. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Can you tell me when?
Spring.
Okay, neat.
The other thing I want to shout out is Patreon. If you guys enjoy this podcast and you want to support us or you want some bonus exclusive content, head on to patreon.com/backpackerradio. That's where all the magic is happening. Chaunce recently put out the last leg of her Northville Placid Trail hike, the last 40 miles, which were very eventful. We recently put out a very chaotic circus-like episode with Jabba and Cuckoo with a Guys Stuff bonus Patreon.
I need more time. I have a list of things I want to ask on the next Guys Stuff.
Yeah, that could be a reoccurring thing.
It should be.
Unfortunately, Cuckoo doesn't live locally, but we could definitely just have fun with that with just Jabba.
Next time he's here, I've got so many more questions.
Yeah. Patreon.com/backpackerradio. And lastly, but not leastly, if you're taking on a long distance backpacking trip in 2025 and you want your journey featured on the Trek, hit us up. We are currently accepting blogger applications, and we recently just onboarded our new community and marketing manager, Jess, who is awesome. And her job is to make the blogging platform as awesome as can be. And she's already got some really cool stuff cooking up, including a promotion where one of our top bloggers will get flown out to Denver, put up for a couple of nights, and will join us as a guest right here on Backpacker Radio.
Yeah, that's exciting because then they get to hang out with us.
Yeah, and we can also pressure them into doing a shoey.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I don't know why that is the thing, but I feel like that's a thing.
Yeah, people love those. Not me, but other people.
Yeah, I learned today that there's now a sake. I think I might be getting the terminology wrong, but you can infer where I'm going with this.
Sake out of a shoe?
No, worse.
How do you get worse?
So instead of pouring the beer into your shoe and drinking out of your shoe, you pour it into a sock and drink it out of a sock.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
No, guys, no.
I haven't seen this, but this was the information that was shared with me. So
why do people do these things?
yeah, I don't know. To me, that's more upsetting, more so just because the sock is so porous. I don't physically understand.
I want to throw up.
Like, are you pouring it into the sock and then drinking it out
or
of the bottom of the sock?
Or are you squeezing it through like it's a cheesecloth?
Yeah.
Ugh.
Doesn't make sense to me.
No, I don't like that at all.
So if you're listening to this and you know what that is, explain it to us like we're 5.
Yeah.
Okay. No more beating around the bush. Let's get right to today's interview with Shari Edelson. We are joined by today's guest. Shari Edelson is a thru-hiker, plant nerd, and horticulturist who is currently a PhD student researching human impacts in wilderness areas. By human impacts, they mean poop in the backcountry. Shari spent the summer in Colorado's backcountry conducting research and surveys of hikers about leave no trace messaging, hiker receptiveness to new recommendations, and best practices for waste management. Shari, thank you so much for joining us here on Backpacker Radio.
I'm so happy to be here.
Let me crank your audio a little bit there. Sorry, we should have done that
Yeah,
before
no
we got
worries.
started. So where do we start? Let's talk about plants. House plants.
Plants are good. I hear they're still out there.
Yeah, rumor has it. So Chauncey went through a phase of being a houseplant person.
Yes.
You have a hefty background in that. I don't even know where to direct this question. I'll let you ask the question since you know more than I do.
Yeah. What is the coolest plant fact you can tell us right now?
Let's see. Well, I think since it's fall right now, we're recording this in October, one of the coolest things that happens with plants in, the northern temperate region of the world is, deciduous trees dropping their leaves. And that's actually the biggest biological phenomenon that happens on the globe.
Why?
Is just that volume of biomass, all those leaves dropping off of trees seasonally at around the same time, and then in the spring that green up. It's the biggest exchange of biomass that happens in the whole globe.
Yeah,
it's remarkable.
Can you explain to me whatever the formula is for predicting when peak foliage is? Because I've been in Colorado now for 7 years, something like that. And just when I think this is going to be a year where it changes early or late, I'm always wrong. And I feel like the predictions always come out late in the summer. Do you know what exactly are the inputs? Is it temperature, moisture?
I'm going to punt pretty hard on that.
Okay.
But I will say that a lot of it has to do with the temperature differential between daytime and nighttime. So that's a factor that triggers biological changes in deciduous trees. So that's a big factor, at least in the east where I'm from.
Okay.
I have another question. If the temperature never changed, let's say it just August, September, October, the months passed and it was weird and the temperature stayed the same, would the leaves stay on the trees?
That's a good question. I feel like the other factor that comes into play is the diminished amount of daylight we get. So that also triggers senescence and leaf drop. And then the final factor is the level of moisture you get. So yeah, it's complex, honestly.
So would you say
if it was just 1 year, it would be, I think stuff would hang on for longer.
Okay.
For sure.
Because I'm wondering if leaves have a lifespan where it's this tree's leaves on average live 4 to 6 months. And then no matter what, the world could exactly stay the same light and temperature wise, but they would die anyway because that's their lifespan.
That's a good question. I mean, I feel like with, trees in this region that are evergreen, they do have an annual leaf drop. So, every spring or summer, the old needles from the conifers from the previous year or previous years will drop off. And it's the same thing with broadleaf evergreens, rhododendrons, stuff like that.
I've never thought about that.
Yeah.
How come there are pine needles on the ground if evergreens are evergreen?
Yeah.
Why are the pine needles on the ground?
It's just it's called senescence. They just get old and drop off. I feel like plant biologists are killing themselves listening to this right now. They're don't talk about what you don't know.
This is a teaser for the Triple Crown, but I've never seen pine needles fall off pine trees.
Sure. Yeah, that would have been a good one.
Yeah.
Maybe my last plant question, and this one's much more subjective, so there's no wrong answer here. Do you have a favorite houseplant?
Favorite houseplant. So there's this plant called a pachypodium that is native to the spiny forest in Madagascar, and it has spines all up and down the trunk, and it's not like strictly a house plant. I bring mine outside over the summer and then bring it in over the winter, and it goes dormant. Yeah.
Whoa,
they're gnarly.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
I love it because it drops its leaves, and then over the winter, it just looks like a haunted chicken foot. Just 6 feet tall in a pot in my house, and it brings me great joy.
It
Yeah, it
looks
looks
like
like-
a spiky snake.
Yeah.
Something out of a Dr.
Mine has a
Seuss book.
few branches on it, which is why it looks like a haunted chicken foot as opposed to just like a haunted snake.
Does it usually get those leaves everywhere, or is that just
It's just
at
at the
head?
top. It's like a little
Oh.
parasol.
How strange.
It's very charming. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have any favorite house plants that are especially idiot proof?
Oh yeah, and also that don't look like haunted chicken feet,
Yeah, sure.
presumably. Yeah, I feel like Sansevieria, which gets called snake plant, or sometimes gets called mother-in-law's tongue. I don't know if we can still call it that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's basically unkillable.
Okay. That's what
Yeah.
I need in my life.
Yeah,
'Cause-
highly recommend.
Yeah. And my greatest achievement as an adult is I have a fiddle leaf
Yeah,
That's correct.
yeah.
plant that is thriving right now. After killing a couple of them, I finally found whatever like lighting and water ratio, and it looks awesome. And it's
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I congratulate you.
Thank you. Tell me more about your career in managing public landscapes and gardens.
Sure, yeah. So I started out as a plant person, despite the astonishing lack of real information that I just provided about what happens with plants when the seasons change. I do know some things about plants, and I got started actually as a gardener, and then got super interested in learning how botanic gardens and arboreta run, because they're interesting organizations where, you know, essentially you're gardening for people, right? So most of these places are open to the public, and a lot of them have free admission. The ones I've worked at all have free admission because I feel like that's important. But yeah, so you're bringing people in to enjoy, look at, be among, maybe learn about plants, and they're super. It's fascinating because on the one hand, there's all the operational side. So you're dealing with things like irrigation and soils and facilities management. There's a lot of plumbing, as you might imagine. And then on the other hand, you're dealing with things like public education and special events and, you know, environmental messaging and learning what your visitors actually care about and why they're coming. And I think especially during COVID, it was fascinating to see how important these public landscapes became to people because they were places where people could go. A lot of gardens are super close to or in towns, so folks could walk there, right? Which makes them accessible. And it was just really important to people to get out with some plants. And I think it was meaningful to see like how important that became to people.
Are you making the decisions on which plants are being included in the garden, or is somebody making that decision and then you're the one tending to and caring for them?
I've kind of done it all. So by the time I quit my career, I was in charge of all our plant collections at the Arboretum at Penn State. So sort of doing a lot of what's called curatorial work. So basically just like art museums have sort of a sense of what art they want to collect and how they're going to go about collecting it, and safeguarding those collections, and then educating the public about them and facilitating research on them. Botanic gardens do the same thing with plants. So collecting, you know, certain kinds of plants, whether it's regionally native plants or plants that are useful in some way or important in some cultural way, and then making sure that you can take care of those well, often sharing those plants with other gardens or back into the wild for restoration projects, and then of course, you know, doing all the education and outreach and research around them.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's super fun.
Is there a different ideal soil composition for like a vegetable garden as opposed to the types of gardens that you're talking about?
Oh yeah, totally. We actually had like big veg gardens in the arboretum that I was running. But yeah, I mean that's part of it is for gardens is deciding whether you want to just work with the conditions that you have and grow the plants that naturally are from your area and grow well in the soil and with the weather and precipitation conditions that you have, or whether for some reason that's important, you want to bring in other plants that need other conditions. So for example, I'm sure here you guys have like exposed bedrock and like pretty lean soils. If you were growing veg anywhere in this part of Colorado, you'd be bringing in a lot of organic matter, compost, all that stuff to grow vegetables. So there's some good reasons to change our soil, right, if we want to grow food. But yeah, that's all part of the decision making.
Cool.
Yeah.
If you were talking to someone who wanted to get into vegetable gardening and they thought it was kind of hard because there is work that you have to do apparently before the actual outdoor part, and you have to know like what growing zones you're in and all of the different vegetables start at different times, what would be your tips for someone who wants to get into it to not immediately get overwhelmed and put it off for the next year again?
That is such a good question. And I feel like what I would recommend people do is like take the easiest road possible. So go to a local greenhouse or nursery and ask them, hey, what vegetables could I grow well as a new veggie grower here in town? And when should I plant them? And can I buy seedlings from you? So I would say don't even start your own vegetable seeds the first year you're doing it. Because I feel like, so for those of us who garden, plant death is just like part of life. Like you just like compost it and move on and like maybe hide the evidence. Like nobody even knows how many things you've killed. But for new gardeners, it's like,
I'm a failure.
I was stewarded with a life and I ended that life. So it can be super demotivating, especially because people who are new gardeners like will name every plant. Right. And then it's like, I mean, I also like disclosure, I'd still name every plant, but it's like, yeah, it can really tug on the heartstrings when you like name, your plant Stewart and then you kill Stewart.
Yeah. So, okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
I would encourage people that want the easiest thing possible for a garden to go with mint.
Yeah.
It's
well, no,
basically
but
a weed.
No, but I've heard that mint you're not supposed to plant in your garden because it ends up becoming kind of invasive and it'll go everywhere.
That's
and then you can't ever get rid of the mint.
You can have a nice full mint garden and nothing else.
Everywhere.
Exactly.
I heard that
mojitos for all.
I heard even if you put mint in pots, like or raised garden beds or something that's not connected to the garden, like mint will find a way.
Yeah, mint.
I'm afraid of mint.
Yeah, it grows like in our rocks now. It's everywhere.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
But it smells nice.
It smells nice. You could put it like maybe if you have a deck. So like in a pot that's like not on the soil.
Contained.
Yeah.
Cool.
Mint containment strategies.
Yeah. Do you have any more plant questions before we move on?
No.
Okay.
I could, but no, we'll never get to the point.
We have a long-standing history on this podcast of not being able to properly pronounce that trail in New Zealand, the TA.
Yeah, we can just call it TA.
Nope, I want to hear you say
You want to hear it? You make everyone say it, and I love that. So Te Araroa.
Yeah, okay, still don't know.
Yeah.
So this was last year.
Yeah, I hiked Te Araroa last year, which is shocking. So yeah, I started out on New Year's Day of 2023. Yeah, it was, and I did it Nobo. Okay. So backwards.
Oh. Is that people usually go south? Mm-hmm. You'd think with all the times we've talked about it, like at least I would retain, maybe not even the listener, but maybe me, the person who is in the conversation, would retain the info.
Once it's on your bucket list, it'll
sink right, exactly, because you'll like research it obsessively, and then it really becomes super important, like what direction you're going to go, because of course when you're going to start.
How was it going against the grain?
I think it's ideal, and I've developed a theory about it.
Yeah.
And I've pitched this theory to other thru-hikers on other trails, and I'm going to pitch it to you all right now. Okay. So here's what I think. So the reason that Te Araroa is presented as like a north to south trail is partially because you sort of train up when you're hiking south through the North Island, it's quite easy terrain. I mean, you would start out on 90 Mile Beach, which is a slog. It's almost 70 miles of beach walking. That would be your first 3 days. But after that, it's a lot of front country, and there's not a lot of elevation. And then you would have a couple months of doing that before you got to the South Island, and you go up into the Richmond Ranges and the higher peaks from there. So a lot of people, the trail is sort of promoted as a southbound trip for that, largely for that reason. And my theory is that people who do trails, quote unquote, backwards are people who either they maybe just because of their time window have to start at the opposite end. We're going to leave those people aside for right now. But I think the other folks are often either more experienced, so they're not intimidated by, if you were doing the AT, you'd be starting at Katahdin, right? Yeah. And everyone's like, oh my God, it's so tough up there. The whites are so hard. Yeah. You want to train up for that. So starting with that, right, that would intimidate people who maybe haven't done as much. And then also, because most of the resources are written for and presented to people who are going the prevailing direction, you have less resources. So you have to be a little bit more self-reliant, or justifiably or unjustifiably a little bit more confident in your own abilities. So I think it's people who are either risk takers, or who are a little bit more experienced, or who just have no fucking idea what they're getting themselves into, or some combo of all three.
So the reason I thought most people went southbound, with doing minimal research just through conversations with people, and I'd love to get your take on this, is that the South Island is much more beautiful, and it's harder to maintain motivation once you've done the harder part and are onto the less interesting part. Is there any truth to that?
There absolutely is, because once you've been on the South Island for a few months, and then you go up to the North Island and you're walking behind the Jersey barrier along a main highway, it's really tough to escape the doldrums or to avoid the doldrums, for sure. Yeah, it becomes a different ball game entirely.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So then what's your elevator, with that in mind, what is the elevator pitch on doing the northbound version?
Well, I think that if you can't start in the fall, so most people, our fall, their spring. So most people who are going southbound are starting in October, November, but I wasn't able to start until January. And if you... that would be super late. Yeah. Because it's also, it's a lot of the same reasons that people choose to go Sobo on the Appalachian Trail, is because if you have to get a late start, then you're sort of chasing the longer southern fall. So you're not walking into a short season, you're walking into a lengthening autumn in the southeast. Sure. So you're buying yourself more time in a way. So that was, part of why I did it that way. But I also really loved getting straight into the backcountry, and I liked that physical challenge a lot.
Yeah.
I know a lot of southbounders on Triple Crown trails in the U.S. will see less people. It's very much less populated with hikers versus the standard way. And I'm sure that's the case for any trail where you're going against the normal direction. But are you still seeing other hikers going Nobo? And if so, how many, how frequently?
Yeah, that's a good question. It is a lot fewer people who are going Nobo on Te Araroa, and that's partially because up until, at least through the year that I went last year, the organization that sort of promotes the trail was really promoting it as a southbound trail. So they almost actively discourage people from going Nobo. And up until pretty recently, all of their trail notes were written just for Sobo. So it's this much smaller group of people. And then what's fun is that when you cross the Sobo bubble, you're like, ooh, friends, but you only get to be friends with them for one night. You know? But it was suddenly like, whoa, that we're filling up this campsite, or like we've filled up this hut and then some. So it's interesting to see like what the Sobo bubble experience would have been like. And you know, I really prefer the small group experience, like smaller trail family. And yeah, I felt like it was a lot more elbow room, and then also a lot more opportunity to get to know a smaller group of people much more deeply, which I really appreciated.
Yeah, if anyone wants some very detailed northbound trail beta, your updates are very well done, and I love the photography in it as well. You break it up into like 4-day chunks, so there's a lot of information per like shorter stretch of trail.
Yeah. I actually writing the blog was one of the best parts about doing the hike. I feel like it really helped me to organize the experience, and it also helped me to not forget the funny things that happened, and also to I don't know, I think I'm a person, I like to maximize. So like having another project was like, yes, like just hiking was not enough for me. I'm like, I need something else to do here. Yeah. So like having the writing project became like really part of how I felt like I organized the way that I thought about what I was doing.
Yeah.
So it was super valuable for me.
Yeah. And not even trying to plug the trek, even if you're going to take the hikes that I've done where I've even just taken notes on like a notes app, yeah, it does help you to process it. And I feel like, you know, just in life, when you're taking notes on things, you are able to recall certain things way better, whether you even look back at those notes or not. So yeah.
It also helps you feel like you don't have to give updates to like every single person in your life. It's like, just like, I can't email all 100 of you. Like, just read the blog or don't. Like,
yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, we've talked about the TA at length on this podcast in the past, though I think it has been a minute. The main course for today's podcast is poop.
Poop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Near and dear to our hearts. So, yeah, if you could just give us a primer into this study and I guess the background that got you to where you are with this.
Sure. So, when I left my job doing the planty stuff, I had an opportunity to go get a PhD. And the person who I'm studying with, my advisor, almost all of his work is in like human impacts in wilderness areas. And I went in to go talk to him right when I was about to start. Actually, it was before I was starting. And he was like, the National Park Service wants me to go up onto Long's Peak and ask people about poop and like whether they've pooped out there. And he's like, he's a wonderful person and I feel like core to this man is not wanting to make other people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And the National Park Service was like, we'd like to send you up into the backcountry in Rocky Mountain and make people very uncomfortable.
Yeah. That's the worst possible task for somebody that doesn't relish that opportunity.
And I was like, oh, you know what, Derek? I love to talk to people about poop. And he was like, really? And he's like, because people, like, I keep getting asked to do research on poop in the national parks and, you know, for the Forest Service and for all these management agencies. And I'm not really sure how to approach it. And I was like, just throw me at it. I swear I will just ask people about poop from sunup to sundown. I feel like also once you've been on long hikes, like once you've spent, I mean, of course, like once you've spent a day alive on this planet, you have pooped, right?
Certainly.
It's just that we don't volunteer a lot of information about it, and then we certainly don't ask each other for information about it.
Oh, we do, but
yeah, I feel like it's sort of like
to
the like. It's considered somewhat impolite to just volunteer information about poop. It's considered sort of beyond the pale to be like, can I ask you about your poop?
Yeah.
Like, that's like a step beyond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I cut you off there.
No, that's okay. It was a really dumb question.
Those are the best ones.
It was, does every baby poop in the first 24 hours?
I'm 3 for 3. I'm pretty sure. I don't,
I feel like babies poop a lot. Well, where my mind went from there was I feel like babies poop a lot. This is a dumb question.
Yeah. Well, we talked about that first poop before. I don't know if you remember.
The popcorn butter?
Yeah, but the texture is especially what stands out.
Hear about it.
All right.
I kind of want to hear about it.
Okay, he can tell you.
Is it meconium? Let me look up the exact. Yeah, meconium is a newborn's first bowel movement. It's like tar. It literally is nothing like you've ever seen exit your body. It had been hyped up for me, so I was kind of nervous going into it. And the texture is very strange, but the smell is not poop-like at all. So
is it hard to clean up if it's tar-like?
I don't recall it being difficult. There's a lot of emotions going through your body,
and there's a lot of other things you're thinking about.
Yeah,
I'm imagining.
But at least, especially with the twins, so my second go around, I remember it being like a non-issue. With Leo, the first time I'd ever wiped a butt that wasn't mine, it was probably a bigger deal. But yeah, the texture is what's so strange. It is literally like tar. Yeah.
We're tangenting here, but I feel like if I have just pushed out a human through my vag and potentially tore it down to my asshole, I should be off the hook for changing some poop diapers for like a little bit.
I don't think the mom is usually expected to handle those wipes.
How long?
Even the nurses
how long
are like
do
that.
I get? How many days, weeks?
I think
until it evens out.
It depends on if it's a C-section or how brutal the delivery was. I'm sure there's a lot of moving pieces.
Okay.
But also, when you're in the hospital, the nurses are taking over a lot of it.
No, I know. I just think I should get like a couple weeks.
Yeah,
off.
no, it's not a couple weeks.
I feel like I should get a lifetime pass.
Yeah. I feel like Garrett should have to do the poop diapers for a bit since I pushed the human out.
The typical tempo is that there's going to be like a poopy diaper with every diaper change early on. So it's going to be like 6 to 8 poopy diapers per day, if memory serves.
I'm going to start chipping away at this. I think I could get off the hook for at least a month.
Now you don't even think about poopy diapers. It's just like it's a muscle memory thing at this point. Okay.
Yes.
I know we're talking about poop, but still off subject. Okay, so you're at Long's Peak here in Colorado, outside of Fort Collins Estes Park. I guess what's the region that we would call that? Somewhere in northern Colorado. And you're being tasked with asking people about their poop behaviors.
Yeah, so that was like the first study. So that was pretty much doing what are called semi-structured interviews, where you just sort of like, hey, how's it going? So in the land of social science, you do that sort of exploratory kind of work where you're just having conversations with people to sort of tease out like what are the important things, especially when you don't know a lot about the subject matter. And honestly, there's so little research on people's pooping behavior out in the backcountry that we really didn't know a lot. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of questions that at least I had, you know, like honestly, are people pooping out there on day hikes in the backcountry? I mean, we assume, people assume that like if you're going out overnight, like unless you're heroic or you're really poop shy, you're definitely going to be taking a dump out there.
Chance is a hero.
I go several days between poops.
Just routinely or just when you're out?
Always. Yeah, so it's nice when I'm on trail because I can get a couple days before having to.
Really? Even with the amount of food that we all eat while we're out?
Yep.
Fascinating.
Yep. I just had one before this episode.
Well,
it was the first in a couple days.
Congratulations.
It's a very special day.
So, right, there's a lot we don't know. Like,
Yeah.
I think there's an assumption that people who are going out for day hikes, even if it's a long hike, that they're probably not going to need to poop, right? But we don't actually know that, right? And then when people do need to go, if they're out for the day, like, what's their plan? Do they have a plan?
Yeah.
And then, depending on where they are, like what kind of a locale they're in, are they planning accordingly? Like if they know they're going to be below tree line, or are they thinking to themselves, yeah, I'll dig a cat hole?
Yeah.
If they're going above tree line, or they're going to be in a place where there's just nothing but exposed bedrock, are they still thinking they're going to dig a cat hole in that? Like chip away at granite? Like what are they thinking?
Yeah.
Are they bringing wagbags? Are they willing to use wagbags? Do they even know what a wagbag is? Like all these questions, like,
Yeah.
we really didn't know the answers.
Let's double click on this. I'm very curious because as somebody that's taken many poops in the backcountry, I can only honestly recall one poop ever during a day hike. It totally caught me off guard. Did not have toilet paper with me because I wouldn't describe myself as a poop shy person by any stretch, but for whatever reason, when I'm out of the routine, maybe a lot of times I've pooped before I got to the trail. I haven't really thought about it. But for the number of day hikes that I've done, for only having one poop, I'm now curious to know if I'm weird or if that's the norm. Or
I've never pooped on a day hike.
Never?
No.
Okay.
I just hold it.
I mean, when nature calls, there's no like, I think I'll hold this for a while. It's like, no, I've got 10 minutes tops.
Yeah, but sometimes nature calls you and they let you know, hey, I'm coming, but I'm still like an hour out or something.
Yeah. I don't have that.
And then sometimes it's like evasive maneuvers.
Yeah.
Immediately. Okay, so one of the studies I did this past summer was up on Mount Elbert here in Colorado. So I suspect that all of your listeners, or many of your listeners, are familiar with Mount Elbert, but it's a 14er, so a peak over 14,000 feet here in the Rockies, and it's actually the highest of the 14ers in Colorado and in the Rocky Mountains. So I was there lurking at the trailhead, pouncing on people and interrogating them about poop for about a month this summer. And basically the trail, if most people, like over 90% of people on that trail are trying to summit Elbert. And even though it's the highest of the 14ers, it's pretty accessible. It's class 1. There's nothing really scary or fancy that you have to do. There's a parking lot right there along a road that's not totally messed up, so it's easy to drive to even if you don't have all-wheel drive. It's just super accessible.
Close to Leadville.
Yeah, exactly. You can get a lovely lunch afterwards.
Yeah.
So, and then the hike is, most people do it in about 7 hours. So there's a lot of people going there who haven't done a ton of high elevation hiking. Because it's like, it has the cachet of like, ooh, this is the highest 14er, and it's pretty easy and accessible. So what we found is that like 11% of people are pooping out there on their hike, which is, I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot of people, but then when you're thinking about it,
a lot more than I would think.
Yes, I was pleasantly surprised. But I think part of what it is, at least in these like high altitude settings, is that people are experiencing like altitude effects. And one thing that happens when you like are experiencing elevation is that sometimes like you get some GI
It's the
effects.
altitudes.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what they're called.
Yeah.
The scientific name for them.
I've never heard that. I'm going to use that from now
It's
on.
when you start getting gassy when you're going up or down because the pressure changes and then it has to come out.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I was like walking up Mount Massive, and I was like, am I gonna poop my pants right now? It was like super abrupt.
Yeah.
And then I was fine and didn't actually end up pooping at all. But like it's a funny thing that happens to you, and it can come on really quickly. So I think this may have something to do with why like such a high percentage of people are pooping on these hikes up 14ers. But what's super interesting about it also is that of the poopers, only like less than a third of them are using the trailhead privy. Like there's a vault toilet there. So like 30% of people who told me that they had taken a dump used the toilet, which means that 70% of people are pooping out on the trail, probably because they didn't expect to have to.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was kind of fascinated with that.
Yeah, that's a significant number for a mountain as popular as Massive. So, or sorry, not Massive, Elbert.
Yeah.
Right next to it.
It's over, okay, so I calculated, given the number of, it's about 15,000 people go up there every year. The folks at the Colorado 14ers Initiative keep track of trail use there. So if you've got 15, I won't bore you with the math, but basically it works out to like over half a ton of poop being pooped out on the mountain every year. And it's a short season, right?
Right.
So over basically like a 4 to 5 month period.
Yeah.
Over half a ton.
So through your questioning, are you also learning if they're bearing it, how they're burying it? Like what's their
Why,
plan?
yes, I am.
Yeah.
So, of the people who are the 70% of poopers who are out there taking a dump on the mountain, what was it? It was 39% of them are digging a cat hole. And then, the other, remaining portion are using a wag bag. So
no one's admitting to just surface shitting out of ignorance.
No one is. Had one person admit to it. Like they typed in the free text area on the question, like basically like I had an emergency. Okay. Don't hold it against me.
So you're standing out there with an iPad and people can type in their answers.
Yes. So this is a way like people. There's a lot of social discomfort involved in just like telling a stranger all about your shit practices.
Yeah.
So and you get biased results.
Yeah.
Because people start to suss out what they think you're looking for.
Right.
Sure.
So I had a fleet of iPads, and I would just give them out to people. People, enter their own answers, and then, I can't see directly what folks are responding.
That's good.
I can't conceptualize large numbers like half a ton. What does that mean? But if there's 150,000 people a season...
15,000.
15,000.
Yeah. 15,000
people a season hiking that mountain. Yeah, okay. Then that means if 10%, I know it was 11, but if 10% are pooping and 30% of them are doing it in the privy, that means 1,050 people are pooping somewhere along the trail every season.
Does that mean someone's pooping about 75 or 3/4 of a pound of poop? Is that the average poop weight?
So it's like between half a pound and like a pound and a half, depending. So I assumed a pound per dump. So assuming 1 pound per poop.
Yeah.
Per pooper.
Right. This is some deep poop math here, which we need to get to the bottom of. It's important.
So.
And it's a 10-mile trail. So that means that there's roughly 10 poops along each mile.
But it's not evenly distributed.
100 poops along each mile. Oh, it's not.
No. I think so. And I didn't ask about this. I didn't ask people to like drop a pin on the map where you took a dump. Although that would be...
I'm going to go find it.
Okay, adding that to the list for future research. But... I talked to the rangers there, and then also the trail crew who were out there this summer upgrading the trail, which, by the way, the Rocky Mountain Youth Corps was out there, and that trail is beautiful right now.
Cool.
So,
pause, hold on, sorry, I need to correct myself. It's a 9.8 mile out and back trail.
Yeah.
So the same trail, that really 5 miles of trail.
Yeah.
So it'd be about 200 poops per mile.
Okay.
Yeah. But so what the rangers and the trail crew folks observe is that people are pooping right below the tree line. So there's like a poop kind of band there.
Yeah.
So it's people who are coming down from the peak are like eyeballing the tree line thinking I'm going to get some cover there and I'll be able to like duck behind a tree and get some privacy.
Yeah.
Or going up and being like, I don't think I can hold it for that long.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's some concentrated effects.
Remind me the percentage of people that are using wag bags.
So what it is 30% of poopers overall are using wag bags.
That's actually impressive for me because I've only carried a wag bag in areas where wag bags are required.
Yeah, that seems very high.
Well, the reason it's so high is because for that particular study, we were actually giving out wag bags at the trailhead. So that was part of this particular study on Elbert, was to see whether people would take wag bags and if they took them, whether they would use them. So over 90% of the wag bag users used our bag.
Got it. That makes more sense. I was going to say, that's a really high percentage in an area where it's not required.
But because it's U.S. Forest Service land and they generally don't. But I think what's fascinating about that is that people are willing to use wag bags.
Yeah.
And I feel like the narrative around wag bags is that people are not going to use them unless they're required.
It's kind of been my MO to date.
Sure.
But I'm excited to have you here to have my mind changed. So.
Well, so when I asked people, like, agree or disagree, I would only use a wag bag if it were required.
Yeah.
And 34% of people said, yeah, I agree with that. Mm-hmm. Which means that like 76% of people are like, no, I would use one even if it was just recommended. And then, a bunch of them did.
Yeah.
So what it suggests to me is that people are willing, if it's presented as something that's recommended, but they're just underprepared. And also, right, because like I talked to one guy who had his own bag. Right?
Is there?
Props to that guy.
I know. He was a real gem.
Yeah.
Are wag bags biodegradable?
No. And this is a thing.
Is there a trade-off between the amount of impact of pooping in a cat hole versus the amount of waste created by everyone taking a wag bag? Like, at what point does it become less LNT for everyone to have a wag bag because of all the plastic and stuff?
This is a huge question, and I'm actually super glad you asked this, because I think this gets to a lot of the nuance that is difficult to tease out, because you have to talk with people for longer than they want to talk about poop, right? So in, I think, many places that we're out in the backcountry, cat holes work great. And I don't think that wag bags need to be, that it's like ecologically necessary for us to, use wag bags as 100% replacement for cat holes. So, cat holes are really good in places where you can dig a deep enough cat hole, so 6 to 8 inches, where there's, some biological activity in the soil, decomposers who can actually start like gromping on your poop, where there's enough soil moisture to support that like biological activity. So like a desert, right? You can dig 6 to 8 inches deep, but it's so dry there that there's very little biological activity in the soil. Your poop just gets mummified, right? And then places where there is not super heavy duty use. So, because what happens in areas where there's really heavy use, even if you've got deep soil, presence of decomposers, like moisture in the soil, when there's really heavy use, it actually outpaces the capacity of those decomposers to take care of. And then also you end up with just like the poop minefield thing, which is just a issue for other users, right? So in most places, or a lot of places where we're out in the backcountry, like those conditions are met.
Yeah.
Right? And so we can totally dig cat holes. And it's the most responsible way for us to dispose of our poop, especially if we're also, making sure that we're far enough away from water sources and that we're not like doing cross-contamination. So, cooking camp food with like dirty hands and, in most places we can still do it. I think it's in places where we're either in high mountain environments where there's just not enough soil to dig a cat hole, where what you'd be doing is basically excavating a rock, pooping in the hole, and then putting that rock back. Not really great. Places where there's so little precipitation that you don't get a lot of biological activity, places there's like not a lot of soil moisture, or places that are super heavily used. So I think that, for us as like responsible, like backcountry visitors or thru hikers, in most cases, we're doing okay. I think most of the challenges for us, I think, are where there's really heavy use, because all of us together are like having an impact.
Yeah.
And I think really the best thing we can do in those places, like I'm definitely thinking of the Appalachian Trail, right, is to just use the privies.
Yeah.
That's the best way that you can keep our waste out of the backcountry, is just use the privies that have been made available to us by land managers.
Yeah. Has your research interfaced at all with the work that's being done, former sponsor from Pact, with their little mycelium tabs?
Yes. So the study that I did at Mount Elbert was actually sponsored by
Okay.
PACT. So they provided some funding, and then the wagbags that we made available to hikers were actually their new wagbag product. So yeah, I've been, they've done a lot of other research on the burial kits that they have, which is like the trowel and the wipes and the little mycelium tablets. But one thing they haven't done yet is to field test that mycelium in a bunch of different ecosystems. So I think that's going to be fun work for them to do, honestly.
Yeah. I'd be curious to know if that's enough in a place like Colorado, whether it's the foothills or at higher elevations.
Yeah, I mean, I suspect that it isn't, because the species of mushroom that they're using is Stropharia, and it, like a lot of other fungi, needs some moisture, and so I think that there may be locales, like high mountain locales or desert locales, where even if you put that mycelium tab in the cat hole that you've dug, you're just mummifying a tab. Like there might not even be enough moisture in your poop to like fully, which is actually one of the reasons that they came out with the wagbag product, because they recognize that there's sort of some, just like biological limitations to what the mycelium can do. I mean, like, you think about it, have you seen a ton of like fungus out in the desert?
No.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's not the ideal
Yeah.
environment for it to thrive.
I'm sure this is not a study that they're conducting, but I'm curious if you were able to hold your pee long enough post poop, use the tab, and then pee on top of the tabs with the poop, if that's enough moisture to get the process, the party started.
Noah and Jake, if you're listening, add this to your add this to your list.
I will
research projects.
I will do it myself. I'll be the N of one here. Cool. That's interesting.
Yeah, but they're great. And what I love about those guys is that they're running a business, but they're super committed to like helping all of us do the right thing. And like their position is really that like the public, like the people who are out there are the best people to solve the problem, right? And I just really find it charming that they put so much faith in us that we're all going to do the right thing.
Yeah. So I'm curious, at least for the Elbert study, is there a conclusion here? Is it that a place like Elbert, it would be worthwhile to have somebody passing out wagbags at the trailhead, or like what's the takeaway?
Yeah, I mean, I think for these high peaks in particular, the human waste is an issue out there. And I mean, especially, if you go out there, if you go off trail below the tree line, you see a lot of it. You see a lot of like surface toilet paper. I saw, like, I was, scrounging around back there. I saw some surface dumps, and there's a creek right at the bottom, and then there's all that dispersed camping, and people are pulling their water right from that creek. Yeah. It doesn't take that much imagination to like connect those dots,
Sure.
right? Like the potential impacts to human health. So, yeah, I mean, the folks at the Colorado 14ers Initiative were super interested in the study because they want to give, visitors to the high peaks the tools to be responsible visitors and to do the right thing. And it's not that every single person is going to need to poop out there, but when they need to, they're underprepared, is what we found out.
Yeah.
So what would, I think, be really wonderful would be to, for the 14ers Initiative to have funding from somewhere, right, to set up these wagbag kiosks, to at least make them available. I mean, there are so many places where, like, so for example, if you're like in Grand Teton National Park and you get a backcountry overnight camping permit, they not only require you to use wagbags, but they provide them with your permit. So you get it at the ranger station.
Yeah.
They also will provide you with a bear can if you don't have one of your own, and then you just put it in a drop box at the end. So they're facilitating people doing the right thing, and they're not presuming that everyone has wag bags or bear cans, right?
Yeah.
So I think to the extent that, management agencies are able to help people do the right thing, people will. It's just a matter of the financial resources, frankly, which is a big deal.
Yeah.
Do you think in places like Elbert, where you're saying there's like a poop line right where the tree line is, and you can tell like, okay, this one area is getting specifically overused? You know how like on maps they'll have like camp zones, and it's like, okay, from this mile to that mile is a camp zone. Would it be like in any way productive to have maps like work with the Forest Service that manages, or the land management areas, to say, okay, mile 2 to mile 4 is a poop zone. If you have to poop, like mile 2 to mile 4 is the zone, and then like have the mile that is overused be a no poop zone, and then you can switch where the poop zones are each year to kind of shuffle it around where the people are. Do you think that people would do that?
What I wonder about that is if it wouldn't just be easier for them to get money to give out
wag bags.
wag bags.
Yeah. I think it'd be interesting if there was like a map where if you were going to go see what hike you were doing, if this was a safe place to bury versus because of the soil conditions you should have a wag bag, or because it's so busy you should have a wag bag. I think making it easier for people to understand like what is the ethical thing to do would be a really
poop zones and no poop zones.
Yeah, and I think
okay, good idea, Zach.
Yeah.
Did you say the map though?
I
think it's
okay,
it's so many factors, right? And I think in a place like Elbert, where they're getting 15,000 people a year using the same trail, I feel like that's a lot of peeps.
Yeah.
Right. And for me as a land manager, I feel like that would probably cross a threshold where I would just ask people like, hey, use the privy or pack out your waste.
Yeah. Has this been evaluated from a backpacking context? Because I imagine something like the John Muir Trail is a challenging scenario, because that's, I imagine, probably dry soil and also definitely very crowded. But good luck trying to sell somebody on carrying 3 weeks worth of shit in their pack or whatever it is from one resupply to the next. Like, what's the thinking there?
Yeah, actually, there's been almost basically, I don't know of any study of thru-hiker perspectives on this, and it's one of the studies that I would like to do next, honestly, is on a long trail, to survey people about what they plan on doing, and why they plan on doing that, and what their sort of level of willingness is to opt in to using wag bags in certain areas, why, maybe if they understand why that would be even a desirable or helpful thing to do in certain locales, and then to couple that actually with a water quality measurement study along the trail as well, just to see what is the impact in terms of water quality of the aggregate pooping of people in key areas. So
partner with one of that app. What's the app where you put down where you pooped? That thru-hiking app. There's an app where you can mark your poops along your hike.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's out there. I don't know the name, but you should find it, because I feel
because if I could get their data.
Yeah.
Sure.
Ooh, big data study.
Yeah. Yeah, I almost think you would have to. I know you're going at it from a carrot standpoint, but I feel like for a lot of backpackers, the stick is what motivates people. The threat of a fine for not having a bear canister. And, if it got to that extent, you probably would have to implement something like that.
See, but it's not, for me, I think it's not even the threat of a fine. It's more so the threat of a bear, right? We need bears to start targeting poopers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny.
Yeah,
I was actually talking with someone about this, maybe just yesterday, is the relatively high compliance when it comes to bear cans is definitely because the consequence, at least in part, because the consequences of not having a bear can are like a grizzly bear encounter, right? Which is a thing that you probably don't want to have. So it's a great incentive to use a bear can, right?
So we could start threatening death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if we can, just get grizzly bears, like you say.
Train them.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Or maybe like a sniper or something like that.
Yeah.
Somebody's watching.
But if it was a natural consequence.
Yeah, sure.
You know, and then we could disavow responsibility.
Right.
Yeah.
Wasn't
I
our
feel like
fault.
that would be ideal from our perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's the next wave of the study here? Like or is there a next?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm looking at doing the thru-hiker study and sort of thinking about which trail it would make the most sense to do it on, whether it's the Appalachian Trail or whether it's the PCT. I think there's, different constraints on both trails. So with the AT, you're looking at a situation where basically the cat holes would be except for super high use areas and like the impacts that's having. So I read a study that found that like the rates for GI infections among AT hikers were like way, way higher than the background rate. And, the authors were saying, this might be because of the amount of fecal contamination, right? That's on the trail. It might also, though, just be because people have poor hygiene. But you wouldn't expect it to be, if it were just people being scuzzers, you wouldn't expect it to be a higher rate of GI illness on the AT than on other trails, right? Yeah. So to me, I wonder whether people are experiencing, coming into contact with E. coli or other like pathogens from other people's poop, because you've got the poop corridor there along the trail.
I feel like I would need, like if I were thinking about what scenario would I be willing to pack out wagbags worth of poop over one resupply to the next, I would need like my pack to have a special compartment for the wagbags to go into.
Totally.
Because I don't want them going next to my food or near my sleeping bag or like anywhere in the inside. But if you could get like Gossamer Gear to add like a bottom like compartment that's separated from the rest that is specifically like maybe odor proof, and you shove your wagbags in there, like a designated shit hole in your pack, that would be more motivating.
Well, have you seen like mountaineers will carry poop tubes?
No, I have not seen that.
Yeah.
Poop tubes.
Poop tubes. I feel like there's a lot that we could learn from like the mountaineering and climbing community.
Yeah. A
with
UL poop tube.
Yeah, that's like, strapped to the outside of your pack.
Yeah, I would put a wag bag in a poop tube.
Yeah. So, it's interesting to think about like what the parameters are for us, right? With the stuff that we're doing back there. So, because I think it's fascinating. I think thru-hikers are fascinating because on the one hand, like we're an easy touch. Like we're living out in the wilderness. We clearly care about and love these places. Evidently so much that we want to live in them instead of at home for like months at a time, right? Like there's something that's drawing us out there. And I really do believe that there's some ethic of care. Like we care. So you'd think that we'd be like pretty amenable to like leave no trace kind of messaging and practices. But on the other hand, we're like tough cookies because we really care about weight. And we're like, I don't want to carry that much stuff that came out of my own body for that long because I'm trying to minimize. Like I like pooping out on the trail because then I leave it behind. Yeah. And like, you know what I mean? Like you eat your food supply down and you're like, yes, this is wonderful. Your pack gets lighter. Yeah. Like your pack's not getting that much lighter if you're toting your turds around.
Right. And when you're consuming 4,000 calories of processed food, that is especially unpleasant byproduct to be carrying with you as opposed to like somebody's normal daily diet. So
totally. Yeah. So I think we're like an interesting case where we're like, we understand the rationale and the messaging and the importance and we care. But on the other hand, like our project out there, what we're trying to achieve really pushes us to minimize our weight as much as possible and carry as little as possible. So it's like a real disincentive. So I'm interested in that tension, honestly.
All right. So the average person listening to this, what do you want them to be their take home for future, whether it's day hiking or backpacking trips? Because I know there's a lot to consider here, right? Like the environment, and there's no poop map to go reference to see like exactly what they should do. Like what's a quick shorthand that they can use to make better decisions moving forward?
Okay. So I feel like if you're going to the desert or you're going to a high peak area above the tree line, just bring a wag bag, honestly. If you're going to a place where there's like tons and tons of people, and there's no toilet facility, yeah, probably the responsible thing to do is bring a wag bag. But that's like very few cases, you know, and I think, you know, if we can make sure that we're actually digging the right depth cat holes, you know, honestly, like, I feel like the shovel's not a bad idea. It's not a terrible idea to bring a trowel with you.
Yeah. I know backpackers are resistant to it, but for a day hike, you're running out of good excuses there because, you know, the weight makes a big difference over 5 months, but for a handful of hours.
You know what's so funny? So I was always a person who was like, I do not need a trowel because, like, we have rocks and sticks that we can use to dig holes. And then I got one of those aluminum trowels and used it, and I was like, this thing digs such good holes, and it's so light. And I was like, you know what? I've never brought one on a thru hike, but I might next time. Yeah. Especially because you can put the little wipes like in the base of the trowel, and then you're not carrying toilet paper, and so you're saving the space.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a good trade-off.
Are you using the deuce of spades or the packed trowel?
I was using the packed trowel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know the weight of that one offhand?
Offhand, I don't, but I was surprised how light it was, and then I had brought toilet paper with me, and I actually was holding the toilet paper roll in one hand and the packed trowel with the wipes and the little mycelium tabs in the other hand, and I was like, well, hot damn, it's even with the stuff in there, it's lighter than my roll of toilet paper, and it's actually taking up a little less space. And I was like, okay, so like, I'm like the old curmudgeon who's like, I don't need it, and I was like, you know what? I think I've been convinced.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the wipes especially I love those wipes so much.
It's so good.
It's like science fiction watching that thing unravel when you add a little bit of water to it. And no, that's something I bring with us.
I feel like the one thing is that then you have to be a little bit mindful in your resupplies, right? Is sort of like, you know, pre-packing and pre-sending yourself refills. Yeah. Because like you definitely, it's not like you can go into the convenience store and like find them like you would a roll of toilet paper.
Yeah. No, I hope they become more popular for that reason and they're available more places.
Yeah, but I feel like it's actually I was impressed, frankly. Yeah.
Sweet. Any other findings from the studies that you want to impart?
I feel like we hit a lot of the high points, honestly.
Cool.
We totally did.
Sweet.
Yeah.
It's been a minute since we've done the Kumo question.
Yeah. Okay.
Shout out to Gossamer Gear, our sponsor. Use code SNUGGLEBUG for 20% off shelters at gossamergear.com. We've got a random assortment of very oddball questions in here, so please grab our ball. And that is your closing question inside that ball.
Okay. Let's see. Do you want me to read the question out loud?
Please.
Or just give the answer and have people guess what the question was.
Yeah, there we go. Like Jeopardy.
What if I just I'm just going to say baba ganoush. Can you guess the question?
What's your favorite food?
Close.
The sexiest food.
That is actually also true. So the question was, if you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, what it would be. And actually, I think maybe I just want baba ganoush right now.
Sure. I have a recommendation for you. I'll give it to you.
Excellent. Yeah. Don't hold me to that because I feel like I might get to a point where...
I'll just say it. Amir Grill in South Golden is very good.
Right.
The baba ganoush especially is excellent. So.
I've never had baba ganoush.
No?
It's a cool name, though.
Baba ganoush is the best. Well, Shari, thank you so much for coming here and sharing some fun poop facts. I'll be very curious to see what the future studies turn up. And, please follow up when there's more information tied to it. Yeah. Is there anything, like, any place you'd like people to go to follow up with you or the research that you're doing?
So... I'm definitely like the last person in the world who still is like resisting social media. So I don't have any of that. Cool. You can give people my email address. It's sedelson@psu.edu. And yeah, I'll email you back. I could even write you a letter. I actually love writing postcards.
Yeah.
So we can be
Here's
as
my
old
home
school as you
address.
want. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, and you can get Shari's TA updates on the trek as well. So, Shari, thank you so much for joining us here in Backpack
Thanks
Radio.
for having me. It's been super fun.
To the Trek propaganda portion of today's show. I keep reaching for a mouse that doesn't exist. Got a couple of options here. I'm going to go with this one because this is actually by my request. The title of this episode is How to Score 9 of the Most Competitive U.S. Hiking Permits in 2025. This, like I said, is something that I wanted to see because there are a few trails on my bucket list, and it's annoying to have to go to all the different National Park Service websites or whatever governing agency issues the permits and trying to figure it out. It is way too cumbersome. Anything that is government related tends to be that way. But if you're looking to hike on either the PCT, Wonderland Trail, John Muir Trail, Teton Crest Trail, The Wave, Mount Whitney, Grand Canyon Rim to Rim, Four Pass Loop, or in the Enchantments, your permit questions are answered in this piece. So shout out to Ariella Nardizzi, who recently took a new full-time job. So we will be having a new editorial intern here in the helm very shortly. Great work from Ariella. Very appreciative of all your awesomeness. Question of the day. This is also mine. Very excited about this. Are farts pushing out poop, or is poop pushing out farts? This is a real chicken and egg.
Yeah, I would say it's the muscle in your, is it a sphincter?
Yeah.
That is actually doing the pushing. And so both are wrong.
All right, you're getting a little too scientific about it. There's either you got the solid followed by the gas, and the gas is pushing out the solid, or you've got the solid pushing out the gas.
I think it's like a little conveyor
So
belt train.
which is the chicken, which is the egg? Not that is less confusing.
I feel like it's all just poop, and then the fart gets stuck in between the poops as the poops are building. Like they build to a certain point, and it's like rocks falling over the exit when you're in like Indiana Jones or something, and then you can no longer get past. So then the fart gets stuck in between.
Yeah.
And then it can't get around it.
That's a fair answer, but wrong. The correct answer is that the poop is pushing out the farts.
Why? Based on what?
Based on the fact that I feel like once I poop, the farts are done.
You have a point there.
There have been times in my life where I have some straggler farts after the poop, but I feel like once the poop has left my body, the fart situation has calmed down.
The farts do usually come first.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I agree. I can't argue that logic.
Yes.
That sound.
Episode 270 something. I finally won one.
Yeah. Congratulations.
It only took 7 years, but I got one.
There you go. Never say never.
History here in Backpacker Radio. All right. This will be fun because I didn't prepare for this at all, so I'll have to go on the fly. Did you prepare?
I have 2.
All right.
So
I assume this is yours because I didn't.
Yeah, and I think I had something that I referenced for this that I don't remember anymore. Rachel, please help me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there was definitely something that triggered this thought, and it is gone now. It's not in my things to remember note either. So I'm just gonna have to think of this from scratch, and that is the triple crown of things that happen all the time but no one sees.
Yeah.
I'll start just to get the brain jogging.
Sure,
but people digging graves.
Yep.
When you go to a funeral, the grave has already been dug.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't see them do it. And you also don't really see anyone around the area digging a new one for someone else.
Yeah.
They're just always already dug.
Yeah.
When do they do it?
Okay. Yeah. I don't spend enough time at graveyards to really have a strong feeling about what is not being observed there, but that's fair.
Have you ever seen it happen?
No.
Good.
Yeah, this is going to really be testing my improv skills here. Might be a double crown for your boy. I'm going to go with clouds. I feel like either it's a bluebird sky or there are clouds in the sky, but I never see the clouds developing into clouds.
You've never been like hiking towards the pass thinking like I'm good, and then as you get closer you start to think maybe I'm not so good?
Well, certainly yes, but at that point the clouds are already there. Like I don't notice the period where it goes from 0% cloud cover to like 10%. It's always like, oh, we're already at a cloud. I don't get to see like the what's the pre-salamander phase.
Do you mean tadpole?
Tadpole. I never see the cloud tadpole.
Yeah, that's not what comes before a salamander.
Isn't it?
That comes before a frog.
Don't salamanders have tadpoles also?
I don't think so. Okay, Google. Google that.
Yeah.
I don't think so. Also weird that you would think salamander before frog.
Why?
Just because.
Yes, salamanders have tadpoles.
Well, in school we have the tadpoles that you raise into the frogs. You never do it with the salamanders.
So what you're saying is you think of frogs. I think of salamanders.
All I'm saying is I've never seen a tadpole turn into a salamander.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to go out of order again. I'm gonna need a second.
Oh, okay. I'll do my next one. Fine. Well, let's just do every other then.
Okay.
Buildings getting knocked down. You always see the building that's condemned, and then you see the new building going up.
Yeah.
I never see them take the dozer and swing that cool ball and knock it down. When does it fall down?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's good.
Thank you.
Okay, my second one this is literally something that I saw yesterday, and I'm not trying to make light of, as of the recording of this, just full insight, nothing has happened, so not trying to upset anyone, but another cloud themed thing, going back to clouds, is you've never seen a hurricane storm, you've never seen the actual clouds rotate. Like when you're in the hurricane, you just see like rain and wind and all that stuff. But I saw a view of the hurricane from a spaceship, and the thing is massive. It looks like it's taking up like half the earth, and they do a time lapse of the spaceship flying over the hurricane. And from that, I expected to see the hurricane actually like rotating a little bit. Didn't fucking move at all.
Huh.
So I've never once seen a hurricane's clouds spin.
Maybe they don't. Maybe that's a tornado.
They do.
You sure? Maybe they're just circular.
I mean, like they're rotating around the eye.
Oh. Maybe they just do it really slowly.
Yeah.
Did you see the meme that was like sharks are probably, the sharks in that area are probably like, ah.
I whatever the news is, I saw that there are going to be storm surges up to like 15 feet, which
Yeah,
is
it looks
like,
very bad.
that's apocalyptic. So, again, we're recording this before it happens. So,
Yeah. This will be like our COVID predictions that we had to throw into the trash.
Not making light of anything,
No.
simply observing the fact that the hurricane didn't appear to be rotating when it should be.
On the shark theme, I'm gonna go with shark attacks. You always hear about shark attacks. You never see the shark attack, and they never show it to you.
Yeah.
Like when I was young, this may be fucked up, but like on Shark Week, I was always kind of like, we're gonna see some kind of cool shark attack. Like the person isn't a person in my brain. My brain isn't conceptualizing that that's actually happening to someone. So there's like a detachment thing happening here.
Yeah.
But they never show the shark attack. They just show like the shark swimming while they tell the story.
Yeah.
There's like a narration over it, and then you see the person without the arm.
Okay.
Have you ever seen a shark attack?
No, I don't spend a lot of time at the ocean. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's all happening under the water, and unless like you're in the Caribbean, the water's not clear enough transparent enough to see through. So, I've seen Jaws though.
What was the one? I'll help you with your third. What was the one when we were at PCT Trail Days about Australians? Remember how like you've always heard of people that?
Well, I remember at AT Trail Days. I'm blanking on his name.
Like people tell you they've gone to Australia, but have you ever actually?
No, his conspiracy is
Yeah,
that
what was that
Australia
one?
doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So yeah, Australia.
I have not seen
existing.
Australia.
Yeah. Sherry, are you here?
She is.
Okay, we're going to do a Backpacker Radio first right now. We're doing our Triple Crown, and I didn't prepare for it at all, so I'm putting you on the spot. You have to come up with my third entry for the Triple Crown, which is things that happen all the time, but no one sees. And unfortunately, your mic's not on, so you're going to have to use mine. Yeah, totally on the spot.
So far, we've got graves,
A couple cloud-themed ones.
Australia.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to Australia?
I have not.
See?
Yeah.
I hear it doesn't exist.
That's exactly it.
I've heard it exists, but I've never seen it.
Exactly. I've never seen it. I've heard people who say it does, but I've never seen them go.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say, I'm gonna say a lot of millipedes.
A lot, not all of them, but a lot of them.
I've seen a couple, but a lot of them were
You haven't seen all of them.
No.
That's perfect.
That works
That is
for me.
exactly right. That is exactly right.
All right.
Okay, we're going to put a pin in this. To the mailbag. I'll take it since I'm sitting looking at it. Hi there, Badger and Chance. I love your show. I listen to it while I train for my long trail through hike attempt this summer. An idea for your top 3 section.
Triple Crown.
What's that?
Triple Crown, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to throw you off.
Which are the best trail-related movies or your favorite? I feel like we've done... Maybe we haven't done that. That's a good
No.
idea.
I only know of 2.
True. I guess it's not a ton to pull from. I gave one that I absolutely hated, which is that Netflix. Supposed to be ATA. I don't think they actually referenced it.
Oh, yeah.
That was not good. You have seen I Walk in the Woods, Wild. Those are the
Those are the
big
2.
boys. There's got to be there's The Way. We can do like an impromptu Triple Crown here of Martin Sheen. Charlie Sheen's father does the Camino. Have you seen that one?
No.
Saw that with my mom. I remember pretty much liking that one. I hadn't hiked the Camino, so I wasn't bothered by like all the inaccuracies, which I think probably ruins some of the other trail movies for us purists out there. But yeah, check out The Way if you haven't seen it. What other hiking movies are there?
Are we counting like YouTubes? How long is a movie to be a movie? Versus like a doc.
I would say it would have to be, like some sort of reenactment.
Yeah, I don't know any others
The
then.
documentary thing is a whole different
Ballgame.
We could do that. We could do that at some point. I think that would be
Yeah.
interesting.
I would need to watch more.
My favorite was Southbound. I thought it seemed to represent trail life well and show how the trail does not. I guess this would be including documentaries because I believe Southbound was a documentary, and show how the trail does not provide answers but yet provides guidance. Life is just like that. Get rid of the extra weight in your backpack. Take care and thank you again for your show. Sly the Navigator from Quebec.
Cool.
Maybe we should do a trail documentary. It's been a minute since I've actually sat down and watched one.
I haven't watched many. But I can. This one's from 007 Pandas. 5-star review. Impressed. 5 stars. I'm always impressed with the Backpacker Radio and excited to see them in August to attend the PCT Trail Days. Your guests are insightful and relevant with today's day hikers to through hikers. Keep up the great work with so many people on the trail. Your presentations will never end. Thanks.
Thanks, Pandas. 007 Pandas. Very mysterious. If you guys want to hear your review read on this podcast, head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave us any number of stars. Just not 1, 2, 3, or 4. Mm-hmm. And if you want a Backpacker Radio sticker, please screenshot your 5-star, or any number review star to us, and hit us up at podcast@thetrek.co. Include your mailing address, and we will send a sticker your way.
Yes.
Super big. Actually, want to give a shout out to our guy, Paulie Shallcross, and his coffee, Old Man Murph's Coffee. Hold on, let me pull up the... That is ommcr.com. They roast the best beans. Paulie's our guy. We love you, Paulie. Thank you to our Chuck Norris Award winners on Patreon. That is Alex and Misty with Navigators Crafting, Andrew, Austin McDaniel, Ben Love, Brad and Blair from 13 Adventures, Brent Stenberg, Brian Alsop,
Fables.
Christopher Marshburn, Coach from Marion Outdoors, Dane,
Ish.
Derek Cook, Eric Casper,
The Friendly Ghost.
Eric Hoffman, Jillian Daniels, Greg Knight, Greg McDaniel, Griffin, Hey, would you bring me a beer? Haley Buckingham,
Palace.
Liz Seeger, Patrick C. Cialo, Rebecca Brave, Sawyer Products, Spam, Timothy Hahn,
Solo.
and Tracy Trigger. You can follow us on social at Backpacker Radio on TikTok and Instagram at Backpacker Pod on X. I don't know why this is so hard right now.
Yeah, you're really fumbling.
This has been a long day and week. Facebook.com/Backpacker Radio. You can follow Chance.
You can find me on Instagram at Juliana_Chauncey, on YouTube at Juliana Chauncey, and you can get my book Hiking From Home, a long-distance hiking guide for family and friends, on Amazon.
Appalachian Trails and Pacific Crest Trails are my books. Subscribe and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you consume podcasts. Follow us on YouTube.
Hi, Internet.
That's it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening, and happy hiking.
Bye.